If nobody will help you, do it alone. Michael Jordan said that, and I'm saying this. Welcome to High and Low. Good day and good night. Welcome to the High and Low Basketball Podcast. This is episode number 100 and Garnett, or episode number Kid, depending on your feelings about the Mavericks head coach, aka episode number 105. See, 5 is the number that was worn by Kevin Garnett during his run as a member of the Boston Celtics, including their championship season in 2008. And Jason Kidd, he wore the number 5, famously, in the wonder years of his career. Because remember, he did play for the Dallas Mavericks earlier in his career, alongside Jamal Mashburn and Jimmy Jackson, and then also with Dirk Nowitzki when they won the championship. Hey man, there's a laundry list of NBA players that have worn the number 5, some notable, many not so notable.
Who the hell is that?
But yeah, we'll keep it at those 2 names. Anyway, my name is Ike Amaechi, and today's starting lineup is Hugo. Yes, just Hugo. Hugo's the one-man wrecking crew today.
It's mine. It's all mine.
I have some questions for you. And the floor is all yours to speak your wisdom and talk that trash.
Oh, what a joyous day. It only took 105 episodes, but it finally happened. Fruits of my labor. I outwilled the rest of them. The weaklings are gone.
You're calling me weak?
Shut up.
That's exactly it. You outwilled them. Yes. See that? Look at that. No one's there to refute that.
No, you hear that? You hear that? Anybody gonna talk back to me? Huh? Anybody gonna say, you got a stupid answer, Hugo? Huh? Who's gonna say that? Nobody.
Oh man. Well, it's Hugo. Hey, listen, man. Around here, we live by the strict code governed by the High and Low Life Society, which means we talk about basketball, especially and specifically the NBA, and we talk about it at any time, anywhere, north, south, east, west, high and low, even if there's just 2 of us. But hey, we keep going. This week on High and Low, we're talking about the Final 4 teams, specifically the Final 4 stars. We're also going to get into a little NBA draft talk as the lottery picks were decided last week. The question is, what difference these picks will make for their franchises, especially when you look at some of the top picks from the last several drafts. Hey, stay tuned for all that. Before we lock in, let's just check in real quick. See, for episode number Garnett, we're calling an ISO for Hugo. See, last week you said you were the most disrespected podcaster. Now, you have no one to refute or dispute your opinion. You can go on record and flame these fools with no retaliation, no snide remarks or comments. You know, these guys think they know everything, and anyone who disagrees knows nothing. But welcome to the world of NBA commentary. Hey, it's all, the floor is yours, like we just said, man.
Hot takes.
Indeed, man. We have a lot to get into. Are you ready for this, Hugo?
Yes, let's do it.
Hey, Hugo, I appreciate your time this week. Thank you for joining me. Listeners, High and Low Lives, thank you for joining us for yet another installment of the High and Low Basketball Experience. Another week, another episode, more NBA. So, of course, more High and Low. This week in NBA history, the league told us that Chuck was better than Michael, and Kawhi brought the Raptors to unknown territory. The Phoenix Suns shit the bed in the conference semis against Dallas, but it's okay because we can look back on some good times in Phoenix Suns history. On May 25th, 1993, Sir Charles Barkley, long before he was Chuck on TNT, he was named the most valuable player after leading the Suns, the Phoenix Suns, to a spectacular season with 62 wins. They went 62-20, averaged 25 a game, 25 points a game, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. The Suns eventually lost to the Bulls in the finals. They were dispatched in 6 games. Now, Barkley's one of those legendary players who had the misfortune of playing in the era of Michael Jordan. One of those players who most likely would have been a champion otherwise. Instead, he finished his career ringless, even though he attempted to chase one with Drexler and Olajuwon in Houston. Now he has Shaq reminding him every week, or at least every other week, that he doesn't have a ring. Shaq started winning chips after the Bulls dynasty dissipated, so he should consider himself fortunate. Just want to say that. Just want to put that out there. Timing is everything.
Very true.
Recognize that, Shaq.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this one's for Hugo. May 25th, 2019.
Oh.
Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, yes.
Then of the Toronto Raptors. He scored 27 points, 17 rebounds in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, propelling the Toronto Raptors, past the Milwaukee Bucks and into the NBA Finals. Of course,
so
we
beautiful.
all know that.
So beautiful.
Yes, he's getting emotional.
Oh, yeah, I remember
just
that.
thinking about how the Raptors would go on to win the title in 2019. And that's enough of that, because this is not a Raptors podcast.
I miss my ex.
Wipe your tears. Wipe your tears. Let's move on. Let's move on to May 28th. May 28th, 1986. Larry Bird. Yes, remember that guy, Larry Bird? We talked about him a couple weeks ago. Of the Boston Celtics, man. He won on this day. He won. He was named MVP. And that meant that he won his 3rd straight MVP, joining Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain as the only players to be named MVP in back-to-back-to-back seasons. I mean, we talked about Larry Bird potentially being on the outside of the top 10 once Giannis and Steph finished their careers. A bit tongue-in-cheek, I have to say. I don't know. I wasn't fully serious when I said Duncan and Bird. But Bird, I think we forget how great Larry Bird was. I mean, 3 straight MVP seasons. I mean, think of all the great players who have won MVP since then and couldn't do that. You know, maybe we'll have to reconsider Bird's position. Are you willing to be swayed, Hugo?
I'm willing to. I mean, it's like I said about Bird. Like, unfortunately, he is forgettable, right? Like the players that played against him will always put him on that platform and on that pedestal. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, right? But we have like so much footage of Jordan, so much footage of all these other folks, right? But where's the Bird footage, right? Like you don't see Bird in highlights, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta, like, when you look it up, there's gems to be found, but it's like, you know, it's hard for people to look at Bird and think, man, this guy was a killer in the league, like this dude. But
different types of highlights.
Yeah, well, that's true too, right? That is true too, right?
He wasn't dunking from the free throw line.
And that's the thing. And I think the thing that really keeps Bird going is, like, now you're starting to hear more of the trash talk, legendary stories of him, right? And people are like, oh man, like, if this guy wasn't the greatest player of all time, he's the biggest jerk of all time because he's making people look like idiots. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I still think he's top 10, but it's funny because in that number 5 spot, he could easily be bumped out of the whole top 10 lists just because of he's probably the most forgettable guy on that list.
What did you say?
So you're not swayed. You're still saying
no, I'm still on that spot, right? But I still recognize he's a legend. I still recognize he should be, you know, top 10, right? But
I mean, 3-time NBA champ.
I know it's hard.
Finals MVPs.
It's hard.
3 straight MVPs. Oh my goodness.
Oh wait, this is a question for Mitch. Mitch, if Jokic gets MVP next year, would you put him in your top 10?
Goodness gracious.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's not here. Oh, I guess he can't answer that, eh?
Mm-hmm. We'll take it as a no. The default answer for anyone who's not here is no. No.
Next question is Stevens.
Anyway, hey, listen, that's a little something for the NBA history nerds. Things are certainly happening in the NBA today, so let's talk about it.
Let's talk about something important.
I got a listener question. This one is from Kamar in Wilmington, North Carolina. Shout out to Wilmington, North Carolina. I got family in Wilmington. Uncle JJ. Looking at the teams with the top 5 draft picks, what team do you see making it to a conference final in the next 10 years? I mean, that's a good question. The Magic have the number 1 pick. Then it's the Thunder, the Rockets, the Kings, and the Pistons.
Okay, so oh my God. All of these teams do not look like they're trying to become winners in any way, shape, or form anytime soon. Magic are notorious for doing the reset every 2 to 3 years. Pistons, they got more forwards and centers on that squad than any other position. The Kings have been historically bad. The Rockets, I don't know. The Rockets without James Harden just don't seem like the Rockets. You know what? I'm going to say the OKC Thunder. And I'm not happy with the OKC Thunder because if you actually, do some research, you'll see that these mofos got a lot of first-round draft picks over the next 10 years. And I don't know how they're not being investigated by the NBA because that don't make no sense, right? They'll give up anybody for first-round draft picks like, what's his name, Tyrone Biggins, the crackhead thing that Dave Chappelle used to do back in the day. You know what I mean? You got some picks, I'll give it up for some picks.
They're addicted to picks.
Yeah, but for some reason, I just feel like it'll be the Thunder because with so many picks, you gotta hit on at least a generational player, at least within the next 7 to 8 years. You know what I mean? Somewhere right now, there's a 12-year-old kid that's going to be the next Hall of Fame legend, whatever you want to call it, right? And right now, the team that has the best chance of getting that kid is the OKC because they have so many bloody picks. They had 3 this year. How do you get 3 in the first round? How is that even possible?
They are collecting picks, as you say. They're addicted to the picks. But if you look at looking at this year's conference finals, for example, right? You look at Dallas, look at Boston, led by Luka and Jayson Tatum. Those guys went number 3. Both of them went number 3 in the draft.
Yep.
In their respective years. And if you look at the 2018 draft, it was Phoenix. Phoenix had the number 1 pick, then Sacramento, ATL, Memphis, and then Dallas. And Phoenix at that time was an absolute joke.
Yep.
We remember Devin Booker scoring 70 points and it was completely empty because they were a bottom feeding franchise for such a long time.
Exactly.
And then boom, next thing you know, DeAndre Ayton he's not looking like he's going to be the best player in the NBA, but he's a very good basketball player, and he's definitely affected the team's culture and their winning ways. And Phoenix turned into a perennial playoff team, if not a championship contender.
Yep.
4 years later.
Yep.
Philly had the first pick in 2017, followed by the Lakers, Boston, then Phoenix, then Sacramento. Of course, Philly, LA, and Boston, and Phoenix. 4 of those 5 teams are now, championship contenders. Outside of the Lakers, of course. But I don't know. I just think both Doncic and Tatum, they've led their squads to the conference finals, and they're both were probably the best players in their draft. They didn't go number 1. That number 1 pick, it's coveted. But do you think it's more important to land in that top 5 given what teams like Boston and Dallas have been able to do with their franchise with Tatum and Luka?
Well, I think the evidence is there. The number 1 pick, is great to have, but depending on your draft class and who's coming up, it might not mean as much. It might be that, okay, you're good with the top 5 or even the top 8, 9. I remember there was years where the top 10 was you wanted to be in the top 10, anything outside of that didn't really matter, right? Yeah. I think DeMar was picked number 8, I think, and Curry I think was 7. There's there are teams now that do a lot better homework and they kind of know and they can project. Some teams still get it wrong, obviously, but perfect example, Scotty Barnes. Nobody expected Scotty Barnes to go 3rd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
when that pick came up, everybody was like, "What are these guys doing?" Right? But obviously, the Raptors know what they're doing. You know what I mean? So I think it really depends on where you go, the development. I don't think the number one is coveted as much unless you absolutely know you have a stud like LeBron James or Dwight Howard or somebody like that coming out of
You said
college.
Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, well, Dwight, is Dwight number one overall? I'm trying to even remember if he was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. LeBron James is the better example. Thank you, Stephen, for correcting me on that. A guy like LeBron James, like, you know that, okay, this dude is a legit, he's Hall of Famer. You take him, he's automatically changing your franchise, right? But
Yeah.
since him, I would say maybe Luka would be a player that I would have expected to be number one if I was doing the redraft. But I mean, even him, when he came in, he wasn't given as much hype, so to speak. You know what I mean? People knew he was good, but nobody was thinking of him as this generational player that you have to pick number one overall, right?
Luka?
Yeah, Luka.
Yes, of course they were.
Yeah, but what did he get picked? He was swapped with Trae Young.
Yeah, he was picked third.
Yeah.
And the surprise was that he didn't go number one.
Yeah, well, again, why didn't he go number one?
He didn't go number one because Phoenix didn't need a point guard or a big guard. See, that's the problem. It's like, you pick the best player available, or you pick according to what you need, right? And sometimes that leads to those mistakes as opposed to going with the age-old approach, which is pick the best player available.
Yeah. I mean, that opens up a bigger debate because it's like, is Booker a point guard? You're telling me?
Well, they had him at the point guard position at that time.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you couldn't have Booker and Luka on the same squad. Like, okay,
100%.
Okay,
100%.
I mean, I wouldn't give that up, but okay. Pause.
Okay. Well, you see, I can hear Mitch being like, that doesn't deserve a pause. Anyway,
no, you can't. You can't hear Mitch.
you were correct. Actually, Dwight Howard did go number one.
Okay,
2004. Yeah, 2004.
Okay,
he picked by the Orlando Magic.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. There's a 12-year-old kid that's going to change the lives of one of these four pathetic teams. So we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. Just if you're an NBA fan like many, you probably aren't too familiar with some of the college kids, or at least the players that are being projected to go top 5 in the 2022 NBA draft. Chet Holmgren, who plays for Gonzaga, he's projected to go number 1, followed by Jabari Smith of Auburn. They got Paolo Banchero, best name in the draft by far. Jaden Ivey in Purdue, and then Keegan Murray. So again, if you're anything like many NBA fans, you probably don't know too much about these players or the NCAA. Hey, quick question for you: who won the national title this year?
Kansas.
Oh, look at that, man! Nicely done. I didn't know that.
Shoot, I forgot about it.
I forgot, man.
I had to think. I was like, who is it? Oh, yeah, Kansas, because they have a Nigerian guy on that squad.
Yeah, and who won the Naismith Player of the Year award?
The same Nigerian guy. No, wasn't
that. You're thinking with the wrong Nigerian guy. He played for Kentucky.
Oh. No, I thought it was, who's that Iowa player? Iowa State player? I don't follow this enough, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't follow this enough. I hear you.
Yeah. Oscar Shibwe.
Okay.
Played for Kentucky. He won the National Player of the Year, which really doesn't mean anything because Adam Morrison once upon a time won National Player of the Year and completely fizzled out. He won a couple of titles. He stumbled onto a couple of titles in the NBA.
He had an awesome name, though. That was an awesome name. Adam Morrison.
Adam Morrison?
Yeah, that's an awesome name.
Like a bit of a rock star name.
Yeah,
I'll give it to him.
The hair and the mustache.
He played into it. Yeah, he leaned into it.
Yeah,
I should say. Yeah, man. Anyway, just a reminder to listeners, if you want to leave a question for us, DM us on Instagram at Get High and Low. You can also DM us on TikTok at More High and Low. And yeah, leave a written question or you can leave an audio note. But yeah, man, let's take a quick micro break before we jump into the every now and then segment. Anyway, this is High and Low. We'll be right back. And we are back. This is High and Low Basketball Podcast. That was a quick break. And it's going to be a quick segment because, hey, it's time for every now and then where we look at a team's current starting five compared to a starting five from that franchise's past and lament on who would win a 5-on-5 or a 5v5 to 11. So, hey, man, we're looking at one of the Western Conference finalists, the Dallas Mavericks, and we're going to compare them to Dirk Nowitzki's championship-winning Mavs squad back in 2011. So this is Luka's Mavs versus Dirk's Mavs. And so looking at today's Mavs, actually, let's look at Dirk's Mavs first. Back in 2010, 2011, you had Dirk Nowitzki, Tyson Chandler, Sean Marion, Jason Kidd, and Deshaun Stevenson. If you don't know who Deshaun Stevenson is, he's just tattoos from top to bottom. Tattoos. It's ink in basketball. And the 2021-2022 Mavericks, led by Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, Reggie Bullock, Dorian Finney-Smith. And just over the break, we were just talking about this because, Dwight Powell has started for the Mavs for most of the year, but during the playoffs, I think they've been toggling between Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber. Either way, who wins a game to 11? And what's the score? What do you think, Hugo?
Thanks, Stephen, for pressing mute. Sean. It's Sean's fault. He pressed mute. It's Dirk's Mavs, like by a landslide. Like, the only chance I would give Luka's,
What did you say?
is if one of the rules is if you score, you keep the ball. Maybe he might be able to go on a bit of a streak, but defensively, for him to deal with Chandler, Marion, Jason Kidd, and Stevenson, he's not getting straight 11 buckets. There's no way. But Dirk, 1,000%, I can trust Dirk to get 11 straight buckets on his own as a 7-foot deep shooter. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, they don't have an answer.
Yeah, no answer.
They don't have an answer for Nowitzki.
No answer. Zero.
Yeah.
Sure as heck, Luka's not going to guard him. That's for sure.
I think Luka would probably try, and then quickly realize that he can't.
Yeah.
Because the guy who's 6'11" and truly utilizes his height and his length on his shot, especially his fadeaway.
Listen, real quick, I used to never rate Dirk high. Right? Never. I know it's crazy. I never rated him high until the playoffs, the finals, when they went against Miami, and my dude hit a deep 3-pointer, right, with Chris Bosh jumping in the air, arm up. He shot over his hand and went, and I was just like, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, Dirk is good. Dirk is really, really good. I even had to turn to my brother and say, yeah, you know what? You're right. This guy knows what he's doing. He's a baller.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, like I listen, I don't even know angle-wise how the hell he shot over Chris Bosh jumping with his hand up and was able to hit nothing but net. Like I don't even know mathematically how that's possible. So Dirk, you win. And the other thing I'll say, I think that playoff, Dirk looked hungry. Like he was like on a mission. Like, I call it, he's kind of passive, right? Like there's times he'll, kind of flex his muscles, but that playoff, like he just seemed locked in, like, all right, let's go. Like I'm trying to do something this time. And
kind of reminds me of Luka this year.
Yeah. Well, Luka listen, that's a bad man. I tell you that for sure. If Cuban and those guys get their act together and put some people around him, woof, that'd be a problem and a half.
Because Dirk was on his own that year, seemingly. Because Jason Kidd was he was at the end of his career. He was shooting corner threes. That was it. But he was basically, it was Dirk surrounded by solid, good,
Hmm.
solid basketball players.
Yep.
Uh, and I feel like that's what the Mavericks have right now. It's like it's Luka, and then you just have some really good, solid basketball players. But the other comparison is just the mentality that both have brought into the playoffs. Like on the surface, these guys they're not going to do the gritty or anything like that.
Hmm.
They're not dancing their way to the finals or to the championship.
Yeah.
They're just like when someone does something or throws shade or says something, talks that trash, they kind of they just nod their head
Hmm.
and then they just let their play do the talking. That's the response. Just like how Devin Booker was just messing around with Luka,
Yeah.
and Luka just kind of just nodded his head and was like, "Okay, okay, I'll
Let's
get
go.
you. I'll get you." The same way LeBron and Dwayne Wade were making fun of Dirk,
Yeah.
about how he had the flu or something like that, or he was sick, and
Hmm.
Dirk did nothing but he just played and he beat him in 6,
Yep.
beat the Heatles.
Yep. Yep.
But anyway, I agree. It's Dirk's Mavs by a landslide. Hey man, you know what? I'm gonna keep this one simple. Coming up next, we're scrutinizing the league's Final Four. We'll be right back with more High and Low. This moment is brought to you by High and Low listeners. This week, we had listeners share their top 5 players that have never played a single game in the NBA Finals. Tough list, man. It's kind of sad, actually. But hey, we heard from Landis in Huntington Beach, California. Shout out to the High and Low Life Society in the state of California. Landis' picks are as follows. At number 5, he has Vince Carter. Yes, the legendary Raptor / New Jersey Net. Well, he played everywhere at a certain point. Number 4 is Chris Webber. Number 3 is Carmelo Anthony. I think Melo might have one more chance. Number 2 is Steve Nash, the South African. And number 1 is controversial because of where Steve Nash is, I think. It's Chris Paul. Wow, CP3 over Steve Nash. Okay, Landis, are you ranking CP3 over Steve Nash overall or just in this context? Anyway, regardless, great list. Thank you, Landis. Listeners, let us know who your top 5 are on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram this week. Thanks again. Now let's get back to High and Low. Welcome back to the High and Low Basketball Podcast, the High and Low Basketball Experience. Let's go with that. I'm Ike Amaechi, and I'm here with Hugo. Yes, it's ISO. Calling the ISO for Hugo today. Listen, man, we're in the midst of the conference finals. Miami and Boston in the East. You got Dallas and Golden State in the West. Each team has its cornerstone, their franchise player, its number 1 guy. In Dallas, there's no disputing Luka's position as the Mavs star player. Steph Curry is Golden State's golden boy. In Boston, despite what Jaylen Brown might think, it's Jayson Tatum's show. During the regular season, Miami wins by committee, but in the playoffs, top guys do top guy things, and Jimmy Butler is definitely Miami's top guy. And looking at these 4 guys, how would you rank them based on their performance in these playoffs? What's your ranking there?
Ooh, ranking. Ooh. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go Tatum, Doncic, Butler, Curry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tatum,
Mhm,
Butler. Sorry, Tatum, Luka,
mhm. Butler, Curry.
Butler, Curry. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
I
expand if you wish.
Yeah, please expound, man.
Okay,
I need to hear some rationale.
So I'm only gonna go with Tatum because he's been a couple of blips. He's been probably the most consistent player out of everybody on this list. He's playing maximum Tatum. So I have to give him credit for his performance. Doncic, I put in because, I mean, as good as the players as he has around him, he's carrying quite a heavy load. And for him to, put that spanking on the Phoenix Suns, basically the number one team in the West, and was hoping to do a back-to-back finals appearance. I'll give him credit for that. Jimmy Butler, when he's maximum Butler, looks great. He's been very up and down. And then Curry has he's been un-Curry-like. I mean, I think when he scores, it is the most impactful, even though it's only 2 buckets or 3 points. It just, like, for whatever reason, teams just don't like it when he scores. And he creates a lot of attention, but I don't think we've had we did have 1 or 2 in the first round. I don't think we've had a Curry explosion where you sit back and you're just like, okay, yeah, like, we don't have a chance. If this guy's on point, this guy's on fire, we have no chance. So the reason why I put Curry last also is I think he's the one player that has the ability to leapfrog everybody and go to the front of the line. I think if he gets to the finals, who would be a biased and finals MVP champion, basically his to lose, so to speak. So we'll see. But right now, I have to give Tatum his props. He's playing like a beast. I think he's had, keep me honest, 5 30-point games so far this playoffs or something like that. He's an animal. So give him his props.
Okay. We'll give Tatum his props. And on Curry, I mean, I have Curry at number 4 as well. But for different reasons. I think, to be honest with you, I think Steph Curry is bored. The core of the Dubs have been here before.
Yes.
And it feels like they're just kind of waiting for the NBA Finals to arrive.
I believe that.
Especially with Phoenix being out, or at least Phoenix was looking very shaky in the second round, and it turned out that, they were gone. They're done.
Yeah.
As a result, I feel like the Golden State Warriors have looked listless at times. They're kind of playing down to their competition.
Yep.
Looking at you, Memphis. And Curry, I think Curry has embodied that. He's had a good postseason, stat-wise, believe it or not. He's averaged almost, he's averaged 26 a game, 26 points per game.
That high?
5.5 assists, almost 5 rebounds per game. So, I mean, his numbers are up there. They're not as impressive as the other 3, but I mean, he's stepped back here and there, pun intended. Like he's not really going for it, so to speak. I feel like he's even given Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson more of the spotlight. Like, yeah, go for it. You guys, shoot the ball, go ahead. But there's that Steph Curry gravity that always affects the game. That kind of puts him on a different echelon. But,
so I was going to say, I'm surprised it's 26 points. I honestly, I thought it was more like 22. So
26, man.
That's pretty good. I just didn't think, it didn't feel like it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you gave Tatum his props, and you had him at number 1. I have Jayson Tatum at number 3, and I think he's come up big for Boston when they've needed him, and that's what stars do. I feel like he really elevated his game this postseason. I feel like he's really stepped into that next echelon, like from good to great. He's on the verge of being a superstar in this league, right? But I feel like there have been a few games where he's stepped back, or against Milwaukee, I think they kind of figured him out a few games, but he's made his adjustments.
Yeah.
He's averaged 28 a game, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. But I have Jimmy Butler number 2 because it's what Jimmy does, man. Jimmy, he kind of coasts through the regular season, but the playoffs are playoffs are his time to shine. Great players wait for the big moments, and his numbers and the results of the Miami Heat kind of reflect that. And he's had statistically, I guess you could say that he's had a better playoff run thus far. He's averaged almost 30 a game, 8 assists, 8 rebounds actually. But number one is Luka. Luka, and I think you mentioned this. Luka has he's got a solid. I mentioned that he has a solid cast of characters around him, but Luka's carrying this Dallas Mavericks team, similar to what Dirk Nowitzki did back in 2011.
Yep.
Luka doesn't have the support that these 3 other stars have, and they beat the best team in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And Luka was able to do this in an embarrassing fashion, and embarrassing for Phoenix. And he's put up monster numbers. I think he's been consistent in Luka standards. He's averaged over 30 a game, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. I just think that Luka, what he's been able to do with this Dallas Mavericks roster, which we just basically said had no chance against the 2011 roster.
Yeah.
But he's brought this roster to the conference finals, beating a 60-win Phoenix team. It's an accomplishment. It's huge, and it's on his back. So I got to put him at number one.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Sean, what do you think? You don't think, can you? Yeah, no, I can't dispute that. Like, I mean, there's good arguments for really any combinations of anybody between number 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this. The reason why it's like I said, I'll just go back to Tatum. I just think he's finally got back on that platform, on that stage, and kind of reminded people, like, yeah, I remember way back when we went to the Eastern Conference Finals without Kyrie, and had a couple of those dark Kyrie years. Well, now we're back to where we need to be, right?
Indeed. Hey, I take nothing away from Jayson Tatum. Can't wait for him to be a Laker.
I didn't just hear that. I didn't just hear that.
Or a Raptor. How about that?
No, it's okay. Giannis's team lost, so I'm sure Masai's like, hey, let's have a conversation.
Giannis is not going to Toronto.
Listen, didn't Masai talk about dreams? Can't we dream?
Yeah, it's fine. You can dream. You can dream. Without dreams, what do we have?
Exactly.
Reality.
Exactly.
All right. So, hey, man, number 1 to 4, and let's see how this plays out. I think it's gonna be interesting to see where we would rank these guys once the playoffs are a wrap. I wonder who's gonna win the conference finals MVPs. Goodness gracious, I can't believe that's still happening.
Oh God. I want to see the ceremonies. I'm dying for the ceremonies where they introduce the trophies. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, just belly laughter from the fans.
Oh yeah.
Hey man, guess what?
Why the fuck I can't shoot 3-point shots?
This brings us to the end of yet another episode of the High and Low Basketball Podcast. So thank you, Hugo. Thank you.
Oh, there's nobody else to thank.
Thank you. Thank you, Hugo. Thank you, me, man. Thank you, me, bro.
Well done.
Hey. Thank you, Hugo. If you haven't done so, subscribe to High and Low anywhere you find podcasts. Hey, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review on Spotify. Just allows other future High and Low lives to find the program. You know what? I said this before and I'll say it again. I once attended a 5-star basketball camp. I'm just saying, 5 stars. It was a 5-star basketball camp. There were 5 stars in the logo. 5 stars. You just look outside my window. I see 5 stars in the sky right now. 5 stars. It's interesting that that 5 stars keeps coming up. Anyway, leave a review and rate the podcast. And hey, go to the High and Low YouTube channel for bonus content. And click on that bell and subscribe. We're on Instagram at Get High and Low. We're on Twitter and TikTok at More High and Low. So Hugo, where can listeners find you this week?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Esteban Thirsty Controversy. No, I'm still incognito, man. Enjoying my playoffs and seeing how everything unfolds. We're officially in the dog days of the playoffs because after the draft, it's all downhill from there.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
So no more fancy awards to hand out. Now it's just the Finals MVP, and the championship. I don't care about the conference stuff and the conference MVPs. So let's see how this all ends. Let's go West Coast Raptors.
Wow, goodness gracious.
I'm still saying that. West Coast
Golden
Raptors.
State Warriors.
Oh, West Coast Raptors.
and another thing for you, the dog days of summer or of the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily a bad thing because you get to watch the WNBA.
You know what? Shout outs to the women's soccer team for getting equal pay. That is a beautiful thing and a great thing to see.
Has nothing to do with WNBA.
I know. That's why.
That's not going to happen.
That's why I'm
WNBA.
talking about it. A better story to talk about. Hey, Brittany.
Pay
Not
equity.
Britney Spears.
I can't believe she's still. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's a Russian citizen at this point.
Madness.
I mean, that's
madness what they're asking for her to be freed. Madness. But what are you going to do?
free her. That's what they're gonna do. That's what they need to do. But hey, listen, it's not a political podcast.
Very true.
But we say free Britney.
Mm-hmm.
The other Britney, the tall Britney, the one that's 6'8", 6'9". I can't believe she's 6'8", 6'9". Goodness.
Mm-hmm. Beanstalk.
Yeah. Anyway, well, same height as Liz Cambridge.
No, we don't talk about this.
I know she got top 5 out of LA. Anyway, rumors. Once again, you can't say pause. Once again, music is by Live of the Enjoy Music Group. That's the music you listen to right now. You can find Live on Twitter and on Instagram at LYVE. You can also find, I misspoke again. You can't find him. Music is also by Sonny Rockwell of The Goodness. You can't find him anywhere. You can't. I've tried week after week. Not possible. Maybe we'll reach out to Drake and see if he knows where Sonny Rockwell is. Anyway, sound design is by Vonn+Abrahamm. This is a Vonn+Abrahamm podcast, just in case you didn't know. So on behalf of Hugo, and Hugo, I'm Ike Amaechi. So thank you for listening to High and Low, and we'll see you next week.
Man, those guys.